are ready to go live. Anybody out there? Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping in. Welcome to the Standard Array with me, SirLucien from SirLucien Gaming, and PB from PB Plays Inside. I think I'm pointing the right way on the cameras. So welcome to our show tonight. What we're going to do a little bit is play around with our schedule for the Standard Array. Some of you may have joined us for our special interview, which was on a Monday. Our first show ended up being on a Saturday, just to put in some show filler for a different show I was doing also. And then now we're trying to find the right spot for the Standard Array. So we're going to try out some things. I think for at least the next few, we're going to try this 8 p.m., 9 p.m. kind of slot on Sunday. It'll float a little bit just depending on how me and PB's day goes. But we'll try to be active on Twitter so you can find it and you can come and watch us. So, PB, how have you been today?
I've been doing just fine today. It's been great.
All right.
Been doing a lot of stuff on our Twitter over at the Standard Array.
Mm-hmm.
It's been trying to find some good pictures,
Yeah. It's been a super busy week and weekend, I think, for really both of us. So we tried to get a bunch done, but we also didn't. The other thing that I kind of thought was funny about today's show is it mirrors a little bit of my current campaign thing going on. So like you probably know from all the shows I've been doing, or if you've been tuning in, that I also do the Monday Night Storm King's Thunder, which PB plays in, and then I do a Thursday night campaign game, which is a kind of a Borderlands homebrew 5th edition game. So I've got the two games. And what's really nice about that is I'm able to experiment a little bit with styles. So like I can do one in one game and not do it in the other game and kind of judge how it's going. This was that way too, because on my Thursday night game, it is the game where I prepare the least, but yet try to make a really good game. And that is tonight's show. This is the Standard Array was prepare the least, and we're going to see how it goes. It's going to be off the cuff. Whereas my Monday night show was all prepared, all Storm King's Thunder, blah, blah, blah. So like if you see the Saturday morning D&D show, I put in hours of work for that one. So it's pretty funny. We're trying out different formats, and we think we're going to bring a good show. We think we're going to bring something interesting, different points of view, different things that'll maybe trigger you to talk with your friends or others that are in the community and just have pretty good discussions. And I think Standard Array will help generate some of that stuff. So
Yep. And for any ideas or thoughts you have about suggestions for the show or guests maybe you'd like to see, feel free to go over to our Twitter at Standard Array, or you can email us if Twitter's not your thing over at thestandardarray@gmail.com. So just, throw your suggestions there. Or, if you just want to tell us, hey, good job, show's great, feel free to leave those too.
Yeah, we love those. If it's bad, tell us that too. We'll switch around stuff. We'll try to do what we can. Feedback, criticism, if it's constructive, is always well received here. So I think that's where I was going with that. I got hit in the head a lot this Saturday. So if my brain is off more than normal, I'm blaming it
that's
on
probably
that.
Why.
Yeah. All right, so one of the topics, we've looked at some other topics. We have a list, and we were looking at some of them, and some of them require, I think, me and PB to dive into them a little bit more, have some better examples ready and prepared. And we weren't quite ready to dive into some of those heavy, and some of them were a little bit heavier of a subject, and we thought we wanted to lighten it up a little bit. We did a great interview in our second episode. I thought our first show was really good if you missed it, but it was talking about playtesting beta material in a game, which not a lot of people have talked about how to do. So I think that's a cool one to take a look at. So we want to be a little bit light on subject tonight to really let us kind of come off the cuff is what we came up with there for our conversation. And I thought what I kind of suggested and PB acquiesced to was we wanted to talk a little bit about playing tabletop role play games and the places that you might play them or the ways that you might play them. So the big example is obviously going to be if you're playing at a table with your friends or colleagues or whoever it might be, but you're face-to-face, you're in real-time zone, you're staring at each other, there's no electronics in between you and the DM and the players, and you're playing that game, versus maybe online So you're playing, you get all your friends together on your Skype, or you get them all together on a Discord channel, or you get them all together in some type of video conference type software, and you play like a Roll20 game. And then there's others that have played, I know too, that I haven't played in so much, but I know people have done all voice. So the only thing they have is voice and no video. And I've seen role-play games played in the past with just typing. So they were just in like a chat thing and they played. So we thought we would discuss kind of our experiences with those, things we've thought about, maybe reasons why we've done one of them or not, have not tried one of them, and just kind of really explore the whole subject from top to bottom. And we thought it'd be, fun for you to come along and take a look at it. So, I see Karza joined in, so that's good. We'll take a look at chat every now and then. So if you see me looking off to the side, that's just me keeping up with chat. And Anarsis has jumped in too, giving us a hi. So we'll wave back to our friend Anarsis, who does a lot of streaming too. So let's dive in. Let's dive in with what we know the most. Me and PV have the most experience, whether it's even together or we both have played on some other stuff, using Roll20, which would be the idea of you're playing with what they call a virtual tabletop, so a VTT is kind of like the term you'll see quite often, a virtual tabletop, and then you use a voice either through that or a Discord or something, and play in the game. So ins and outs of that, what do we like about it? What do you think might be a drawback to it? Where do you want to start that conversation? Do you want me to go and then do you want to jump in?
Well, let's see. So, like you said, I mostly, completely, totally have only played on Roll20. And it's mostly just because it's the easiest and most accessible online gaming thing we can do with RPGs, right?
Yeah.
Like we did Numenera on it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a ton of D&D on it. I was even going to play an Apocalypse World game. It didn't go through, but we were also going to do it on Roll20. So I've done Dungeon World. I've done a whole bunch of random stuff, actually, now that I start to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's just because of that, because it's so easy. Star Trek. It's just it's so accessible. It's very easy. There's a bunch of tokens and stuff, easily accessible. You can make your own, just grab art from online and just throw it in a template. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you can draw on it. It's really what you would want in front of you at a table, but, with other people. It's the tabletop of the internet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the things I like from virtual tabletops are going to be things like Tabletop Simulator is one that people have used. We use Roll20 exclusively because I've really liked Roll20. Cody from Taking 20 kind of sold it to me way back when I started watching his videos, and I just really liked it because we also looked at Fantasy Grounds, which was the other one, and I noticed that Karza had mentioned there's another one out there called Aegis Online that we haven't looked at, but I'll look it up now that he's mentioned it. And yeah, I have seen some people have tried to do has started to do Facebook stream stuff too, where they can try to run a game there too. So there's definitely lots of ways you can do it. Now, what I found advantage-wise that I think from a DM perspective, like PB had mentioned, being able to throw art assets up on the screen to give tone to your players is really neat. And you can do it on the fly. You can prep it, or you can do it on the fly if you think you need something. What I really like too about it is how the character sheet integrates all the math for you ahead of time, right? So when you're making, if you put a little bit of time in the setup, when you're setting up your abilities for whatever it is, it usually can do the math, and then it's not a lot of trouble when you're sitting at the table trying to do it. You just push the button, it does the things it needs to do, and you can move on with the role playing and the decision making, and not so much, I rolled a 20, but I get a +2, but it's a minus this, or it's a plus that, and all that kind of stuff, and trying to remember what you're doing. So I really like the organization of the character sheets for some of those games. And lots of games have different, they have that support. So D&D is definitely by far the biggest one, but we found character sheets for Star Trek Adventures, which was the brand new game out. I found character sheets for Numenera. I found character sheets for some of the other games that I've looked at, so that kind of support is out there, and I like that. It does come with integrated video and voice, though we use Discord for ours just to try to keep the quality up of what it sounds like. The other thing I've noticed is scheduling does not seem to be as tough to get your players at a virtual table as it seems to get somebody at a physical table every single week, right? If I try to run a game that's at my table, that's harder to do because people have real lives. But it seems like it's easy for them to set aside an hour or two at night when they know they're going to be sitting at their computer, because they can get up if their significant other needs them, or their pet needs them, or somebody knocks at the door and they need to receive a package or whatever. If I'm playing a virtual tabletop RPG, that all can happen and it's not a big pressure. So I feel like attendance is better with the table game or the virtual games. Yep.
And also, it's not only just, I mean, obviously it's also just the ease of access, like you were saying, but also because it's online, you can do it anywhere. It's the same virtue of being able to play with whomever anywhere in the world. You can play wherever. If you're on a business trip, you could just, if it's at nighttime, you could just, chill in your hotel room and just play there. Discord doesn't take that much bandwidth. Roll20 might, but all you really need is your character sheet up and you're good.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's just easier because of that. Like you can play on your tablet. You can access Discord or whatever voice app you use really anywhere. Tablets, phones, wherever, you can just talk there. I know I used to do it a bunch off of my tablet because my internet used to be really wishy-washy. And that just made it really easy and more accessible for me to do a game online.
And I think it's, and Narcissus is in channel, he's talking about easier to play online in my pajamas than get presentable and go to somebody's house. And that's true, the convenience of it. But it's also, think of it this way too. You're playing something in a safe space, right? If I'm in my house, I'm feeling pretty safe. And let's just say somehow the game gets too intense, the game gets too crazy, it's going in directions I don't like, and I say, guys, I'm not real comfortable with it, and then they might say, hey, we don't care about what your feelings are, we're moving on. I can just shut it off. I'm done. I don't have to confront people in an emotional scene sitting at a table across from me. I can just be, yep, we're done. This is a game and I'm out, So I think there's something about being in a safety area when you're going to express, I don't want to necessarily say feelings, because we're portraying characters at times, or we're acting, or we're pretending to think like them, or show what their feelings are and stuff. And that's a little bit of vulnerability. That's a little bit of opening yourself up in front of people that you may not have normally done. Like I would never have walked up to PB on the street, having never met her, and then did some funny voice near her, or even talked to her. I probably would have been like, she doesn't want some weird guy coming up and talking to her. I wouldn't even have talked to her. But we met online to play a virtual game, and it worked out. It was a safe place for us to say, oh, you know what? We are people that have similar interests, and we can sit and talk and have in a safe space.
Mm-hmm. And that's what makes really doing anything online very much easier. And it's the same thing with being able to find games. It's so much easier you have choice online, right? In real life, you don't get that opportunity. There's like a game in your local store that happens once a week. Other than that, no, we really don't have anything else. You don't really know many people who play games or run games in real life. And you do have that safety net of just being able, I mean, you can also walk out in real life, but it does make you feel much more comfortable being able to just shut something off than you would online. I mean, in real life. But the virtue, and not only that, but you can take online elements into your real life game, right? In your in-person game. You can use Roll20. I've seen a bunch of great setups of people putting a TV in the middle of a table and using Roll20 through that. And the DM uses a laptop and moves everything there. So you still get the fun of rolling dice. So you can still get the fun of moving your miniature from, place to place, and ticking off stuff on your character sheet if that's your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And still the ease of access of using VTT. It
Yeah.
just it combines those two things together. Or you could just run a straight up in real life game with no technology involved.
Yeah. And it may sound like, because we started off with the online version, which is really where we have most of our experience, that somehow that's the best way or the only way to play. And it really isn't. The idea, I think, of what we're saying is, here's the benefits that we found. Drawbacks can be technology, right? We had a game where Discord shut down on us, and that became an issue. We might have a game where the video conferencing shuts down on us and it kind of messes up what we're trying to do. Other times it might be, let's say you talk somebody into playing a game with you, but they've never done any of the Discords and the video conferencing, and all of a sudden there's like a lot of setup that you've got to do with these people that are pretty new. Or even if you're going to teach somebody brand new the game, if you do it online, now you're teaching them two things. You're teaching them how to play a complicated Dungeons and Dragons game, or a complicated to somebody who's never done it. And I don't want to say these games are complicated, because they're written pretty well to pick up for people. But when you first look at it and you pull out those rules and you've never played one before, they seem complicated in the very beginning. They seem a little intimidating. And I think if you're going to do it online, you're not only having to teach, well, let me show you how to make a character in Numenera. Let me show you the rules about Numenera. Oh, also let me teach you all the things you have to know about Roll20. Or let me teach you all the things you have to know about Fantasy Grounds, or whatever it might be. So now I'm teaching you 2 or 3 things. So it can get overwhelming for somebody that's pretty new if you don't go slow enough, if you don't try to pace what you're throwing at them, and there's some uptime. So there are advantages to it, and there can be some disadvantages, things that can be worked around and you can do. But things to keep them in mind are a few of those things. Can you think of anything else that might be a disadvantage that I didn't
Of
cover?
playing
PB?
online?
Of playing online?
Well, other than technology is unreliable, having to teach people how to use technology, which I'm sure we've all had to do in our lifetimes. Anyone who is even a little bit competent suddenly is the genius, the IT genius.
I mean, we may have covered them.
People are a lot more, as much as people are more reliable on to get to a game, they're, I would argue, also a lot more unreliable, because it's so much easier to just not sign in and do a thing, or it's just easy to be like, oh, that's an online game, I could skip that and I could go do this IRL thing. Like I said, I had that apocalypse world game that it was me and a bunch of strangers. We were going to play this game, and the day came around that we were going to play this game, and the DM just wasn't anywhere. We were just like, well, I guess this is a dead game. And like half a week later, maybe a week later, they finally signed into Discord and were like, hey, sorry, but like, somebody was in the hospital or something like that. A totally acceptable excuse. They said that, and it was just like, but like, why did you wait so long? Discord is an accessible medium where you could just pop on and be like, hey, I can't make it at this time, let's reschedule. Like, I don't know, a day earlier, a little after it happened, when everything calmed down.
Yeah.
And to comment on Kars's comment, I think he meant those were 2 different statements. He just didn't take a breath between them, of coming up to a random person and just talking to them, and coming in and talking to them in the character. Though I have done both. Me as a PB in real life, I feel between the 2 of us, Lucian, I'm the what is the word? It's not expert. The person who is
extrovert and introvert. Is that the 2 words?
Yeah. I'm the extrovert.
Okay.
So I'm a lot more willing to go up and just talk to random people for no reason at all, and do something silly if that's a thing. But like online, it's easier to just talk to somebody. You're less scared to talk to somebody, a stranger, online than you are in real life. It's much
Yeah, as
scarier to
odd as
walk
that
up to
is to
someone.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's much
Yeah.
scarier to walk up to a stranger and just talk to them in like a regular setting
Hmm.
than it is online. Online, if I'm in a game with someone, I'm talking to them, right? I'm like,
Right.
hey, hi everyone. Let's have a good game today. Blah 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 blah. In real life, I'm gonna be like, well, I'm just gonna sit here and sip on my coffee and just continue on with my life and let everybody else do their thing around me. I'll text my friend on my phone, right? I'll
Right.
do the millennial thing. So
And I think
I think
Anaris
that
is, yeah, had
helps.
brought up one too. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was the end of my statement.
Oh, okay.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And Anaris had mentioned the one more thing that I had thought about while we were still talking there was it can be a lot harder to keep people focused online. That is something me and PB have talked about a little bit in some recent games where we can tell, I think, a little bit that it's easier for one of our couple of our players to be looking at a second screen or a third screen from their computer, and then you can tell because it'll come up to their turn and they'll be like, oh shoot, it's my turn, now I have to figure out what I'm doing versus, oh, I was just watching. Or even we were just joking before the stream started because I was saying something to PB and she was like, yeah, and I was like, that had nothing to do with what I just said. She says, no, the Rockets, they just did a good play. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. So online, we're online creatures. At least me and PB are. And if you're on Twitch watching people talk about Dungeons and Dragons, you're probably a very similar person where you're very online oriented. But you're used to multitasking online also. Like you're used to having a YouTube up, you're used to having another screen looking at your mail or your news, your Twitter feed. You're used to looking at your Tumblr at the same time. Maybe your phone's buzzing. So you're doing a lot of stuff. And if you go to play a tabletop RPG online, you're kind of doing the same thing. You got your character sheet up. Maybe you're doing a couple of tweets or things on your phone. You're looking at another screen because your favorite team's playing, or you're playing some music because you want to listen to it. That's, and so I think a narcissist is right too. I think it's easier for a player to zone out a little bit. You do see it in table games though. Don't get me wrong, because I've been sitting at a table, we're playing, and somebody pulls their phone out and they're on it for 10 minutes while the game's going on. And they're not really listening. They're engrossed in whatever it is. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not, right? And sometimes you say to your friend, hey, we're playing a game here, phones down, phones in the basket has been one of those things that, can come up. So I think we've covered that pretty well. And I don't think I want to give the impression that you only should try to play games online. And if you're not playing your game online, you're wrong, because that is not what we're saying at all. We're just kind of pointing out the things that we think are benefits and some things that might be downsides you want to keep in mind. But let's kind of switch it over to talk about playing in person. Okay, because playing in person has a lot of benefits too. There's real social interaction going when you're in a room with somebody and you're sitting and talking to them. You get very close to that with video chat and talking to people, but it's not necessarily exactly the same. A lot of times when you're playing around a table also, the side talk is easier. That's something a couple of our players have talked about that's a little harder in the online. A lot of times you can have a couple of players whispering to each other while a DM is dealing with another person or another scene, another couple of characters in another scene, and the other people can still communicate with each other without interrupting them. Whereas when you're on an online game, the way Discord works is everybody's at one volume. So there's a lot of overlap all at the same volume. So it's a lot harder. We have to be more conscious to say don't talk over to somebody when you're online versus when you're in person. It's easier not to talk over somebody but still communicate.
Well, it's easier on just on the social level, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taught not to talk over someone. You don't talk over someone. And so on Discord or pretty much any voice app, you're going to talk over somebody. If you talk at the same time, you're going to get that mumbled mess because acoustics don't exist. And
Right.
when you're in person, you're in the room with acoustics where you can with your friend, and whoever is doing the scene can be like burr, 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 and the DM's like, and then this really interesting happens, and you can be, and it'll cause a little bit of noise. It'll cause that white noise in the background, but it doesn't interrupt what's happening.
Yeah, that was a good way to
Which is
explain it.
kind
I like that.
of,
And we see it a little bit, like if we talk about, because I've seen some people say, like when they're watching Critical Role, there's a lot of character interaction going on, even when, say, Matt is describing a scene or something. Like if you go back to season 2, episode 1, where he's laying the groundwork of the very first full paragraph he's reading to get the game started, the characters are kind of communicating and whispering into each other and you know, kind of saying stuff, and they're super excited, and they're, sometimes it's a joke, sometimes it's not about the game, so a lot of times it is about the game. But you can do that without interrupting that flow, like you said, because, and I hadn't realized exactly what you'd said, that makes so much more sense in my head now, is the acoustics, you have an understanding of them and you can manipulate them or work within what the acoustics of the room is to do that without interrupting. Whereas online in Discord, you have no control over I'm whispering or I'm not whispering, or, you know, I just want to talk to that one person versus the other one. That's very, I hadn't really thought of it that way. That was a really good way to say it. Way better than I did. Some other advantages, I think, the first game. Now, I started, obviously, playing games at tables. As you know, when I found D&D back when I was 8 years old, a friend of mine's brother came over to show it to us. He had just bought the box set. We played it. I don't think we got any of the rules right when I think back on it, but we had this wonderful time of playing a game. Throughout all the years of high school and later on after school, playing games at dinner tables, that's how I went up. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I became a DM and I decided to play my first game. And my very first game was at my table out in my living room. And I liked it. I liked running the people in front of me. I liked having them there. What was really nice about the experience is it wasn't just a game experience, because people came over and we had dinner set out. We had snacks. We had lots of chit-chat before, lots of chit-chat after. We had lots of things to communicate and really kind of come together as a group of people, just, you know, talking. It could have been a cocktail party. It could have been whatever. We just happened to throw a game there in the middle of it. So there is something to be said about playing in somebody's home, as if it's like a Saturday afternoon tea party or something, you know. What I think is hard, though, for most people out there, especially now that there's probably millions of people playing role-playing games right now, like since its resurgence, since its renaissance has hit, there are so many more people wanting to play or looking to play or trying to play. I think it's harder to find a good group willing to come to your house or your dinner table to play, right? Like if I said, PB, can you get 5 of your friends together and have them come over to your house and play, let's have them play some Numenera. You know, could you get 4 or 5 friends to come over and play Numenera?
No.
Yes, it's hard, right? Even though you want to, even though you may know a couple of people you might be able to talk into it, a full group, 4 or 5, and you're going to run a game, that's still pretty tough. So to me, it's still tough to get a in my house kind of game going. And you don't necessarily want to just advertise to a random person, hey, come over my house and play a game, right? Before you tell anybody your address or where you live or, hey, come sit on my couch, you kind of want to get to know that person, right? That's not quite as safe as I'm just going to have people over. So I think you get a lot of social aspect out of it. You get a lot of interaction. I think scheduling is still tough for people to be able to drive over to wherever you are and show up and have a good time. And finding that group can be much more difficult, I think, with the tabletop. Because it's hard for you to have found one and you haven't had friends that would have, do you think if you did, if you knew right now you could call 5 of your friends in your town and they loved whatever game you were going to play, Dungeons and Dragons, Numenera, Apocalypse World, you know, any one of the games, do you think you would do it? Do you think you would set a night aside to go to somebody's house and play in live?
Yeah, I think I would. I have the misfortune, however, that I live in Houston, which is now, I think, the 3rd largest city in the United States. Not only in population, but sheer just square mileage.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes those friends live over an hour away, despite still being in the Houston area.
Yeah.
But if all my friends lived in my area, like if I could just go to my friend's house who lives like 8 minutes away from me and have a game there every Saturday night, yeah, we would totally do it. It
Yeah.
would be an absolute blast to just
Bring
sit
it.
there
Bring
and
some
be
chip
silly.
dip, popcorn. Some snacks,
Yeah.
some whatever, and just hang out. Yeah, yeah. I think people would, because again, that's going to feel like a safe space, right? It's people you know, it's friends, or maybe some family, or even a mix of the two. Maybe colleagues from work. You've maybe done things before that have come together. Maybe you've had dinners, maybe you've all gone out bowling, maybe, so there's that interaction where you can be feel safe with those people. So yeah, to have a game at your table or somebody else's table, I think feels okay. But there's really a third kind of version of play, right, that you have access to, because we've talked about, hey, you could go online. We've talked about you could get your friends or colleagues or family to come play at your house or at one of their houses. But then there's also the idea of, well, I'm going to go down to the game store, or I'm going to go to a convention and I'm going to play. I'm going to find these conventions. I'm going to go sit down at tables with totally random people, like totally
Well,
never met them.
before we move on to
Yeah, yeah.
game stores, the the other commentary I would have to make about have playing a game in your house is that I think if it can really promote the epic session, right? Online you usually have shorter sessions. You usually
Mm-hmm.
do 2, 3, 4 hours. You don't usually sit there for 6 to 8. You don't make it a day long thing. That's usually a special thing. But when you're in person with your friends, adulting is hard, like you said. It's difficult to mesh up your schedules so you can all have a free night. You know, people have children, they have animals at home, they have husbands, wives, significant others who live at home. Maybe they have other people who are dependent on them. So if they get a night where they can play, like they're allowed like one day every 2 weeks or like every month to go out and play and get together, you're going to stay out and play forever because that's what you do when you go out with friends, right? You spend a stupid amount of time together on that day because
Yeah.
it's probably the first time you're going to see them in like 2 months.
Yep.
So it really promotes having a longer session, which I think, not the topic for today, but I think that allows you to create a more epic story. And it's just sort of fun to sit there and be silly with your friends. And so you enjoy doing that long session as opposed to doing it online
Mm-hmm.
because there is no cheese dip, there are no chips, there is no
Mm-hmm.
small talk, there's no wine at the table that we're all sharing. We're not all the same level of intoxicated when we're online, right?
Right.
So I think it's just a different dynamic in person than it would be online or at a game store.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think each one is valid. Each one is probably worth trying or seeking out and doing, even as we get to the third one here, real quick. And, but if you can only, if you only like one style, that's the great thing of all of this, is that if you're the person that only wants to play online, because that's the only way you love to do it, it's here. You can do that. If you're the one that says, nope, I've got a friend. I talk to him every week just about, and I say, I want you to come play in one of my games. We're playing it on Roll20. He's just, nope. If he's not at a table and he doesn't get to roll physical dice, he's not in. It's not fun. He's not going to do it. And I'm just like, I respect that. I understand the idea of that's the way you like to play. Seek that out and find it. It's out there. It's harder to find sometimes, or sometimes it takes a little while to get to it, but you can do it. And even the third way, which is funny because if you went in the order of how I was trying to find games in the last 2 years, this is what this I'll tell you that order after we talk about this third one. But the third one is, hey, let's go to the game store and see if they've got games going. So I know my local game store. I went down there and they are running an adventure league on a Wednesday night. And I went in there and there were people at tables, lots of people. I knew nobody. It wasn't clear who to talk to kind of get into going. It's obvious they kind of were in the know and knew what was going on. And it was going to take a little bit more effort from me to figure out, okay, who do I talk to? Who's the coordinator? How do I get into playing Adventure League or whatever role-playing night there was? And then the other thing I tried to do just after that was I went to a convention and I said, I'm going to sign up for a game and I'm going to play. And that was really actually a fantastic way to play. what I liked about it was I was with random people I'd never met. It allowed me to get over the anxiety of a little bit of talking to strangers. When you just finally kind of tell yourself, I'm just going to sit down and have fun. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to learn the game. I'm going to play this character, learn how the rules are. And the people there are typically very helpful. What I noticed at con games and game store games, they often are getting people that are brand new to whatever system they're running. So they're very used to helping people get started. And so that's a good feeling when you have somebody to sit down to bring, a PBs. It would be very comfortable for me if I went and I brought a guitar or an instrument that I knew PB knew how to teach. And I sat down, I said, PB, hi, my name's, Lucien. How do I play this instrument? And then she already knows how to teach people those kinds of things. That's going to be an easy conversation for us to sit down and get going. And I think when you have that kind of, hey, I'm willing to show you this new thing because you're interested in it and you're new, that builds a nice, cool rapport with somebody very quickly that you don't have to get over. I think it was really good. Have you been to any of the game storms near you to see, are they playing games on certain nights? Have you even looked at any of those from your side of it?
No, because
No?
I do not have a gaming store close to me. The closest gaming store to me is about an hour, hour and a half, depending on traffic away. And in
Okay.
the most awkward place possible, it's like right on the side of a very major freeway, right at the exit of the freeway. So it's when all the cars are going super fast and you have to cross like 2 lanes to get there because obviously it's a one way. And it's a very small, very easy to miss entrance to get in there to the store. It's very steep and it just makes me terrified for the bottom of my car and the muffler. So, and then when you get in there, it looks very sketchy. So I've only been there with friends because I'm not saying that it's a place that bad things have happened. I'm just saying I would be afraid as a female going there by myself because there is one way in, one way out. So it's not somewhere I'm very comfortable going. And I don't really have friends who are super into the RPGs. So I would have to go alone and not my thing.
Yeah, and I think there's probably lots of people out there that are the same. The idea that you have this interest, but maybe not as many of your friends, colleagues, or family do. So sometimes it's hard for you to find other people that share that interest. I think it was a little tough for me in the beginning because I was playing with some friends, but we had all kind of had broken up and no game was being played. So when I went to try to find another game to be in that wasn't with those friends that I knew couldn't get together, it was tough. I was looking all over the place and couldn't find a single game to get into or find a place to play, and the game store just wasn't quite right, or I hadn't really been doing conventions yet. I just had started that kind of thing. So it was really interesting. One of the biggest questions when I went to YouTube to try to figure out I want to get back into tabletop role playing was, where can I find people to play with? Where can I find players? It was hard to try to figure out, or I would do Google searches like, where's a resource to find more players? And it was a lot of people already have their game. So it's not something they think about too often, or it's not a resource that gets built up as much. But you have like Google Plus groups and you have Facebook groups sometimes. I looked through some of those trying to find some things. I did find some Numenera groups doing that. And now there's probably it might be easier now because the Resurgent 2 years ago is kind of when it was starting up again. So it was a little bit hard to find games, I think, 2 years ago versus now. But those are kind of the three ways that I think you can find role-playing games that you can try to play. All three of them are valid in some way. All three of them maybe have setbacks or things that are negative about them in some way that you can probably mitigate or you can try to work around. But they have them so that you're aware of them. And you did bring up something. I was going to save it kind of for the end, but you did bring it up. The great thing I thought about this topic is a lot of times we'll have shows like this and we don't have the perspective of other genders in the discussion. or just the idea that some people have been very intimidated. Maybe their game store they go to is a lot of people that don't look like them, right? And that's a big, all of a sudden, whoa, how do I invite those people to my house? How do I get involved? How do I feel comfortable? How do I not feel endangered in some way? That's another big barrier that some people have to overcome. And I think there's a lot of shows out there. There's a lot of people talking about, oh, it's real easy to find games and things, but they don't come at it from, I'm a woman in wanting to play role playing games, or I'm somebody of maybe like a race that's, they could be Native American, or they could be Korean, and they're having trouble finding games. It could be anything like that. It could be of a religion of some sort. It could be whatever it is, because it seemed like for the longest time the game stores were a lot of the same looking type of people, and if you weren't them, you might feel intimidated to say, why would I even try to play with those kinds of people? I'm not represented in that group. And I would think that I would like to hear a little bit more about, how you've thought about dealing with that, or what it's kept you, from doing, what your experiences have been with that.
Well, I didn't get into role-playing games because it's totally my jam. I totally love role-playing games. When I found out about D&D, I was like, oh, wow, where has this been my entire life? This is exactly what I've always wanted to play. But it was because the only way I had ever heard about D&D because I'd never heard of any other RPG game. The only reason that I hadn't is because I'd only ever seen it on TV. Mm-hmm. It was either been made a joke of, mm-hmm. or it was depicted with a bunch of white guys, mm-hmm. older in nature, sitting around in a basement playing a game. Right? And we don't have basements in Houston because we live in a swamp. I know very few white guys in my real life, mm-hmm. and we're not the type of people that I'd want to play a game with. And so there was nerdism in my school. I was part of it, but the nerds, mainly we were card gamers. So there were a lot of Magic, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of Pokemon, depending on what generation or what time you're asking me about. Yep. So I'd never heard of it. And it wasn't until Critical Role came around that I saw people playing it. And then, not only did I see cool people doing this cool thing that I'd always wanted, I saw people like Marisha and Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham all playing this game that I was like, whoa, crazy. Even Orion Akaba, right? And like, they were the people that I'd never seen depicted play this kind of game. Yeah. And so it did make me feel a little bit more confident going into it. But I still didn't go out and try and find the game myself because, again, even if that's what I saw there, they are in LA, which is a very diverse place, mm-hmm. sort of like Houston. But I wasn't going to go out of my way to go find a game. None of my friends were going to play those games. So I was just like, well, I'm just going to, sit here and not. Like, I tried to get my friends to play Fiasco a million times. I tried to cater that game to them as much as possible, and it was still no, right? They're, again, more card people. We played Cards Against Humanity, a bunch of Uno whenever we were together, but never mm-hmm. anything like D&D. And it's because most of my friends were female, so I think it was just not a thing that they thought was accessible to them. And so it isn't until really Critical Role, the internet really just showed me, hey, look at all these cool people playing this game. And then I got lucky that the first game I got into was with you, someone who's like super open and super chill, as opposed to some other people who are very, very gatekeepery and would see me and they'd be like, nope, I'm just going to make this the worst experience for you because I don't want you to be in this community with me because you're not who I think should be here, mm-hmm. which is something that you experience sometimes in different communities with different people. So it's really a toss-up that you have to be careful with. So that's pretty much why I never tried anything online or in person, because I tried with my friends and they were not down with it. So I was like, okay. And online, I just got lucky, Mm-hmm. And still, even when I get into a game that's not with you guys, I still feel that little bit of anxiety of, oh, well, what am I going to have to deal with here? What am I going to have to worry
Yeah.
about?
Hmm.
It's like, are we doing, face cams? And am I going to have to deal with people being like, ooh, person of color, I don't know how I feel about that. Or, ooh, I hear my voice and they're like, oh, she's female. Ooh, how am I going to play that game? Now I have to
Yeah.
limit myself to not be a dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I still worry about it, but once you find that core group of people that are pretty chill, you sort of trust that you're going to be surrounded with people who are pretty chill, at least in my experience.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that has opened my eyes up is the same thing, because my original games and playing were with my friends, and it just happened to be that my friends were very similar to myself, and that's just how it was. And it never dawned on me that was, for somebody to look across the library at us playing, they might not approach us and say, hey, can I jump in your game, if they were different in some way than we were, because there was a very kind of gatekeepery mentality to gaming even in the beginning. I think, like, as you were just talking about card gaming, Magic the Gathering had plenty of that, for if you were a woman who wanted to sit down and play Magic, you had to deal, probably, I'm guessing, with the million, oh, you're a girl and you play card games and you play these games, like dealing with shock, instead of just like, well, of course we all play card games, we all like games, why would that, why would it matter one way or the
Yeah.
other?
And because I had that cool thing where everyone was into card games. Like, I got
Yeah.
into Pokemon when I was younger, and I'm Mexican American. My best friend at the time was Mexican American. My other best friend was black, and
Hmm.
our other best friend at the time was white. So we were all like, yeah, fuck yeah, Pokemon. And so we played a bunch of Pokemon, pretended to play. Let's be completely honest. We didn't really actually play the game, the card game. We were just like, look at this cool card. And so that we shared that experience. And then getting older, it was the same amalgamation. It was, Mexicans, Hispan, Latin Americans, because I didn't know anyone from Spain. Um, people who were African, people who were black, people from who were Pacific Islanders, people
Hmm.
from different parts of Asia. Like, I had that amalgamation. Really, the only people I never saw play those games were white people, and that's just because they didn't really exist at my school.
Hmm.
So I never had that gatekeepery feel on the games I played, because everyone I knew who played them was a person of color.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
even when it came to things like RuneScape, so it's just who you saw play it.
Hmm.
Like D&D, that was gatekeepery to me because I never saw anyone like me play that game.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And so it's something to keep an eye on. And we realize that, I'm hoping that it's getting easier for people to find games that they're comfortable with, no matter who you are, what type of game you're looking for, what type of group you're looking for, what type of experience you're looking for, whether it's online, in person, or just random one-offs at conventions or at game stores and stuff. Hopefully those are getting better for people. Hopefully those are, I think things are coming around. It feels like there's more acceptance in this group now, in these communities, than there was. And I hope that trend tends upward. And I realize that it's not always going to be that everywhere you go. And if not, hey, you know what? If you're having a hard time finding a game, send us a message. I'm sure we can fit you into a one shot here or there. You can come play with us at some point, so at least you have one good experience of role playing, but I'm hoping you can really actually find them all over the place, because role playing is so fulfilling. It's so fun to let your creativeness out and collaborate with other people and enjoy it with other people, that I couldn't imagine not doing it, at this point. I just couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you just have to be the change you want to see, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to put yourself out there so other people like you in some aspect also feel comfortable coming out and just creating a safe environment. I know that's such a controversial statement to make because,
Yeah.
safe places, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to create a nice environment for people, to collect nice people who are that way too, because they're also looking for a safe space to play.
Yeah,
So
and for those of you out there that this whole thing's easy for you, and you may be listening to it and say, maybe you're thinking these two are crazy, because I can find games every single night if I want. It's super easy for me to find games. I think that's super awesome. I'm going to challenge you to go out of your way to help somebody who's having trouble get the experience you're having. Because if it's easy for you, then just try to make it easy for someone else too. It's great that it's easy for yourself, but see if you can make it easy for others, or be that example in the community that others can say, I want to be like that if I'm in the community. Try to be accepting and help those. Look for those people that are having trouble, that want to get into it but are afraid to, don't want to put themselves out there. Find a way to help them get out there and play it, because I think it's something that all of us, I think, could benefit from.
And do it in your games too.
Yeah.
Don't just look for people who are of a different sex or gender or race or whatever. Put them in your game. Matt Mercer does a great job on Critical Role, and it's really showed at the beginning of this one, now that he's creating new NPCs, because we only got to meet the old ones in the last campaign. But, he throws in characters who are of a different color than some people. The characters, the PCs, are of different races and different colors, and the tieflings matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have people who identify as gender fluid or gender queer, however you want to look at it. People who are not straight,
Mm-hmm.
So put it in your games too, because that will, even though it's all imaginary, you still have to imagine it. And instead of all these people imagining a bunch of white dudes running around in, a fantasy setting, you could put in like, here's the rainbow of people out there in the world. And if you can't find people who are those tick marks you want to check off on your list that you want in your game, if you put them in your game, they'll be like, oh wow, that's so cool, that's me, I'm seeing myself be a badass in this game. So don't be afraid to do that either. It doesn't matter if you don't know anything about their culture. It's a fantasy game. Create their culture, just make it different than what's usual, or make it the same, because honestly, we live in the melting pot. So
yeah, definitely.
yeah,
All right. Well, I think that's kind of where we wanted to go with that. We wanted to talk about some of the different ways. We wanted to give you our experiences, maybe give you some of our ideas on what we liked or what might be some drawbacks that you can maybe mitigate, find ways to mitigate yourself. Hopefully we've encouraged some people maybe to go out and play some games, to give them a little bit of courage if they've been having a hard time. And if you're in an area that just is very gatekeeper like, maybe we gave you an outlet to find another place that you could go, whether it's going to a convention and finding more people that are just like you passion wise that want to play games, whether it's looking online for people, whether it's going to your family or friends, or maybe even work colleagues that it might work out and you can actually play a game. So hopefully we've encouraged you on that. We wanted to just talk about the different ways that you might be able to play these wonderful games that we're playing right now. I know we also wanted to talk about in our show, one of the things we want to do is we want to have segments in our show like you have in, other TV shows or podcasts or radio shows or whatever. And maybe eventually when we get this whole thing down, we'll have little cool segue music and flashing videos and really cool stuff, but we're not quite there yet. We're still working on it. But we did want to talk about things that are interesting us this week, or things that we saw in the past week or so, like new Kickstarter kind of things, or new things that we've seen in DM's Guild, or hyper RPG, as my dog jumps on me. Not hyper RPG, drive through RPG. So Kickstarter wise, a big one released, one that I was excited about. PB, have you been excited about this one, or has it just been my excitement bleeding over to you as far as on this one? I've been excited about Strongholds and Followers, the Matt Colville Kickstarter. What about you?
I had no idea that was a Kickstarter until you nonstop tweeted about it.
Yeah.
And I also follow Matt Colville and Matthew Colville in different avenues of social media, so I knew him from there. And that's been crazy good.
Yeah.
Everything that's been going on with that. No, I've seen, I'm gonna screw up this pronunciation, Achtung.
Oh yeah.
The Cthulhu
Achtung.
Tactics.
Yeah.
Yep, Achtung, the Cthulhu Tactics action RPG video game. Again recently heard about it and I thought was like, what? That's so cool. They have also met their goal, though not in such exorbitant just just success as Matthew Colville has.
Yeah. That's our friends over at Modifius. Modifius was we did a beta play test of Star Trek Adventures, a game they put out last year. But they've been putting out some good games. In fact, we even talked about it on the other stream. We brought in John Carter of Mars. And that was a cool. They're doing that's Modifius. So yeah, they are doing the Achtung, which I think is the German word attention. Cthulhu, kind of Cthulhu based, really cool concept. The art really grabs you, is what I think is really neat about that game. And they've got they have a role playing game, but they're also going to do now, like you said, a computer game. So I thought that was kind of cool and exciting. The Matt Colville one, or Matthew Colville, depending on when you follow him and what channel you're on. He's been a YouTuber and a streamer lately. He's a D&D centric, but does other stuff. Talks about movies, talks about music, talks about books. He's a writer and author. He's written 2 books. He's still writing his 3rd one. And I've read both of the 2 books, and they're good. They're real fantasy books. Like, he's a real author. He's worked on games and stuff. So he's a person you might have known about from other areas. But he's doing the Strongholds and Followers Kickstarter for 5th edition, expansion for 5th edition, that allows your characters to build a stronghold, and then how would you use that in the game? What are some rules that you could use to do things with that game? And I thought it was pretty funny because they wanted $50,000 to do that, and he wants to start streaming his games that he runs. And so the overall goal was $50,000 to do this, to get this supplement, to help them with streaming, and everything would be great. And he got that in probably the first hour of the Kickstarter that happened. And then they're sitting at it right now. I'm on his page. They're at $850,000. I think it's like over 1,000% higher than what they wanted. Looks like a huge success. It's only been going for 3 days so far. It's a 30-day thing. Yep. Yeah. Colville also write the CR comic. He's doing the Critical Role comic. He's played with Matt Mercer's been in a game of his. Liam's been in a game of his. Not viewed anywhere. Not that you can see it online, but they played together. And so it's a kind of a cool community that if you're in there, you might know him. And so that was one thing. I'm a backer of it. I thought it was pretty cool. So we definitely saw. And I love Modifius though. They put out good games.
Yeah, to finish up Strongholds and Followers, it is a 5e D&D 5e supplement. So I'm sure you could translate it to other RPGs. Matt Colville loves all games. Does not discriminate.
He's made some games. He made the Lord of the Rings role-playing game back in the day.
Also the Doom card game.
There you go. Yeah. Crazy talented guy.
Yeah. And Modifius just keeps on going, man.
I like Modifius a lot. That company is a cool company, and they're like knocking it out of the park with every product they bring out. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, and they're hitting just so many different, like, I've never played anything Cthulhu based, nothing Eldritch Horror based, but I can say I'm not wholly interested. I don't want to look anything up about any Cthulhuism.
You just want to experience it.
Thing. Yeah, I want to experience it. I want to be freaked out the first time it happens, right? I want someone to be like, and this is the really creepy description of this crazy thing, and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, that's so creepy, but so cool at the same time. I'm experiencing a lot of emotions. So when I heard Achtung it was a thing, I was just like, that's so cool. Really, honestly, if anything starts off with fight the Nazis, I'm pretty much down. They win me over. And then they say, and the spawn of Cthulhu. And I'm like, well, I'm totally sold. In this exciting action strategy RPG game set, done. You don't even have to tell me it's award winning. Don't tell me it's the Cthulhu universe. You sold me.
Yeah.
That's the thesis statement all your English teachers told you to put in as your first sentence in your papers. That's the kind of thing they want. Fight the Nazis in the spawn of Cthulhu. Done. You've sold the person on that paper.
Don't need to read anymore. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, I think it's about time that we wrap it up. let's get to a couple of things. So if you're excited about that, I'm hearing Karza and Anarsis talk a little bit about it. This might be some exciting news as we wrap this up. So let's go with our outro here. So for Twitter, the show Standard Array has its own Twitter account, which you can see at Standard Array. PB will correct me if I get any of these wrong. That is our show. You can find the email if you want to email the show. We keep an eye on that in case people want to send in suggestions or things. And I believe that one is the Standard Array at Gmail?
Gmail.com.
Yeah, gmail.com. Yep. So the Standard Array at gmail.com. Twitter is at Standard Array. Other social medias, we're not really doing any Facebooks, but mine and PB's other social media. So you've got at SirLucien Gaming for my Twitter, and PB, your Twitter.
You can find me at PB Plays Inside on literally all the social medias.
All the social
including
medias.
YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. So
yeah. And yeah, we're both on Twitch at the moment, so you can find us, or like she had just mentioned, but I'm at / SirLucien for Twitch. And for YouTube, if you just type in SirLucien, one word, you find all of my YouTube channel stuff and all my videos, just like PB Plays Inside for Twitch and YouTube for PB. And then upcoming shows, here's the exciting piece for those of you that have stayed long enough to listen. This coming Saturday, we are going to have Matthew Colville on the Saturday morning D&D show. He's going to be there with me and Jordan. PH is silent. He's going to do an interview with us. So we're going to get to talk with Matt Colville himself Saturday morning. We're still putting in the time. We think it's going to be at 12 p.m., but we're going to change it if he needs to change it due to his schedule. We'll be tweeting the hell out of it all week long, I'm sure. And so if you guys want to see me and Jordan get to interview him, that's going to be pretty cool. That's coming up this Saturday.
Can they send questions anywhere?
Certainly, yeah. They can send them to any of the social media things that you've just seen us talk about to me or Jordan. Jordan is at Jordan, so that's Jorfden, but the PH is silent if you want to do that. But yeah, certainly we have all, and chat, we'll be answering questions from chat and things like that too. Other upcoming shows, we should also plug Storm King's Thunder tomorrow night, our Monday night game. We brought the whole team back, all 7 players. Although Monday night session is the team getting back to each other. But we'll have everybody on, everybody playing. We're deep into, I would say we're almost halfway through that module finally after a year and a couple months. We're finally to the halfway point. So there's a good time to get in and start watching that, even if you don't go back and watch all the other ones. Then our friend who's probably still in chat at this point, Anarsis, who is playing an awesome or DMing an awesome Adventure League game for me and PB and Nomadic. We are playing The League, which you can find on Anarsis' Twitch channel. And we play there, and we're playing some low-level characters. I think we made 2nd level, and we're ready to continue that adventure. So we're just beginning Tomb Annihilation. It's Adventure League rules. It's brutal. It's tough. We're going to try to make it through it. We're going to try to get through that whole thing. It's been super fun. So you can check that out on his channel Tuesday nights at, I want to say 8 p.m., I believe, right? We've been starting at like 8:30-ish. We get rolling on that. And these are Eastern times.
There you go.
Yeah, where in the world? Keep me straight. Then Thursday night is not broadcast at the moment.
Nope, you don't do Thursday.
I'm playing that game, but not broadcasting. And then we have my Saturday show. PB also has a Saturday show, if you want to plug it.
I have this Saturday show.
Shadowrun?
Oh, I do. That's right. You're not wrong. I do Shadowrun at 9 a.m. on Twitch, which is really fun. Last time I played, my character got her secondary goal of getting in the menage a trois with a couple who was in a movie.
Hot tub, right? A hot tub.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
In a hot tub. Wasn't even a threesome. Was a foursome. Overachiever, that one. You can find that at Greybeard Tavern.
Funny.
I'm sure the bonds are there. Yeah.
All right. So that's all of our plugs at the end. we're hoping people stay long enough to hear all our plugs instead of putting them at the beginning. So hopefully we get the content, and then you can hear all the extra stuff we're doing. And then we're going to keep, right now this is our Sunday show at the moment. We're trying a Sunday evening to see how Twitch receives it, see how the audience is, see how it works out for people's times. We may switch it down the road. We may try a different night, maybe a Friday night, maybe a different night. Who knows? We're going to play around and see where it fits best. So just keep an eye out on, our Twitter, and just checking out the VODs and YouTube to find out, kind of more information here or there. If you ever want to just ask what the heck's going on, send us a message. You can send it to an email or Twitter. We'll definitely see it.
Yeah, and as soon as we know, you'll know.
That's true. Sometimes almost exactly. We're going to try to give you a lead time, but no. So,
and if you have one more thing, and if you have anybody you'd like to see us maybe interview, we do all RPGs. We don't discriminate here. If you want to see us interview someone from the community, feel free to tell us either on the Standard Array Twitter, or I guess either of our Twitters. Though I would prefer the Standard Array because things get not lost there. And you can also email us if Twitter is not your thing over at thestandardarray@gmail.com. And any comments, anything you think we can improve. If you want to fix my great, beautiful background that I did very, very quickly with my first time using GIMP, feel free to, let me know in on Gmail.
No, I love the
That'd be
background. Great. All right, so that is our show tonight. Definitely check out the other shows. Go check out our last show with our interview with the guys that are doing the Retroverse and the Lasers and Liches. That's really good. I definitely recommend you go take a look at that if you can. So, all right, let's let these fine people get back to their Sunday evening, and we will see all of you hopefully next Sunday when we come back around with our 4th episode of the Standard Array. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.